It's called the Genbaku, or Atomic Bomb Dome, and it is the iconic memorial to the dropping of the first atomic bomb. And it's in the adjoining Peace Park here that the anniversaries are held to remember the more than 140,000 people killed by the one bomb. Very nice to meet you. Hiroshi Harada was just 6 years old and was less than 2 kilometers away from the blast. He was only saved by being on the other side of the railway station. As one of the most prominent survivors, he was in charge of organizing the 50th anniversary of the bombing and has noticed, he says, a big difference with this anniversary.
There doesn't seem to be the same momentum. Back then, everyone came together with a shared goal, and I think that attitude gave us tremendous strength. That year, we organized peace exhibitions at home and abroad.
He's the former director of the Peace Memorial Museum, which is dedicated to the event. It includes collections of everyday items and possessions that belong to a population that had no idea what was about to befall them. Amongst the more than 2 million visitors who come here annually are hundreds of thousands of school children from all over Japan.
These are the kids who will build the future. So while they're young, they should learn what an atomic bomb is and can then decide whether such a weapon should or should not exist.
Every year, the number of living survivors, known as hibakusha, which means literally victims of the atomic bomb, declines. And as they pass away, their names are added to a register kept here at the Memorial Cenotaph. And projects are now underway to try to capture living memories of the event before they're lost forever. And at this high school is one such ongoing project. Art students teaming up with survivors to take their memories and bring them to life on canvas. Tomoko Wakamasu was only 3 years old at the time and has very scant recollections. And it was only much later in life that her mother told her that she was screaming out. She felt she was surrounded by ghosts.
You hear some teachers complain that children shouldn't see things that are so shocking, but I think it's important that they see, even if it's terrifying.
Before I started painting, I thought the atomic bomb was something from the past, but you realize each of these people had their own lives until the moment the bomb was dropped.
A new generation determined to immortalize the horrors suffered by previous generations that they may never happen again. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Hiroshima, Japan.
80 years ago, the United States used a weapon of almost unbelievable power against Japan. A B-29 bomber flew from the island of Tinian in the Pacific over 2,500 kilometers to the Japanese city of Hiroshima, carrying the world's first nuclear weapon, nicknamed Little Boy. The US had intentionally spared Hiroshima the bombings experienced by other Japanese cities, so the power of the new weapon could be assessed. Hiroshima's population had swelled to 350,000 as military personnel and refugees from other cities crammed its streets. The bomb, containing 64 kilos of highly enriched uranium, was dropped in clear skies, detonating at 600 meters above the city center. An estimated 80,000 people were killed instantly as the fireball incinerated the center of the city, vaporizing people and melting buildings. Fires burnt for days as the death toll rose, the overwhelmed authorities dealing with something they'd never experienced before, radiation poisoning. The city of Hiroshima estimates that 140,000 people were killed by the single bomb, with an explosive force equal to 15,000 tons of conventional explosives. And yet, just 7 years later, the United States tested its first hydrogen bomb, nearly 700 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Monday, August 11th, 2025, Missile Monday. And I have this article from Al Jazeera. And it says, Nagasaki marks 80th anniversary of U.S. atomic bomb attack on Japan. So I'm just going to go into this article bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And what I'm also going to include in the title is 80 years later, because again, as of, August 9th, so just a couple of days ago, marks, 80 years since, the U.S. dropped those atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it says, twin cathedral bells will ring in unison in Nagasaki for the first time in 80 years, as the Japanese city commemorates the moment the United States decimated with an atomic bomb 8 decades ago. Crowds are set to gather at Nagasaki's Immaculate Conception Cathedral on Saturday morning, as the church's two bells will ring together for the first time since 1945. The U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on the southwestern port city of Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945 at 11:02 a.m. local time. 3 days later, it dropped a nuclear weapon on Hiroshima. About 74,000 people were killed in Nagasaki, while 140,000 people were killed in Hiroshima. On August 15th, 1945, Japan surrendered, marking the end of World War II. The church in Nagasaki, widely known as Urakami Cathedral, was built in 1959 after it was almost completely destroyed in the monstrous atomic explosion, the hypocenter of which was just a few hundred meters from the religious building. Only one of 2 church bells was recovered from the rubble. But funded by Catholics in the U.S., a new second bell has been constructed and restored to the tower. It will chime on Saturday for the first time in 80 years, at the exact moment the bomb was dropped. Nearly 100 countries are set to attend this year's commemorations in Nagasaki. Among the participants will be a representative from Russia, which has not been invited since its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Israel, whose ambassador to Japan was not invited to the memorial last year over the country's war on Gaza, is also expected to attend. We wanted participants to come and witness directly the reality of the catastrophe that a nuclear weapon can cause, a Nagasaki official said last week. Spearheading the fundraising campaign for the new church bill was James Nolan, a sociology professor at Williams College in Massachusetts, whose grandfather participated in the Manhattan Project, which developed the U.S.'s first nuclear weapons. While doing research in Nagasaki, a Japanese Christian told him he would like to hear the cathedral's 2 bells ring together at once. Inspired, Nolan embarked on a year-long series of lectures about the atomic bomb across the U.S., primarily in churches, ultimately raising approximately $125,000 to fund a new bill. It was unveiled in Nagasaki earlier this year. The reactions were magnificent. There were people literally in tears, Nolan said. The cathedral's priests, the cathedral's chief priest, Kenichi Yamamura, said the bell's restoration shows the greatness of humanity. Says it's not about forgetting the wounds of the past, but recognizing them and taking action to repair and rebuild, and in doing so, working together for peace, Yamamura told the AFP news agency. And yeah, man, as you can see, still to this day, 80 years later, man, you know, the Japanese over there, which, you know, those of us, you know, we don't really care, you know, because they're heathens, but, you know, it's still important to show you the sins of America, man. And that's just one of the many sins that this place, you know, has done. You know, they literally bombed, you know, Japan, you know, during World War II. Slovakia. But they literally bombed Japan, not once, not twice, but a few times, actually. But, you know, those were the two most notable, you know, bombings that took place. You know, those were the most infamous, you know, bombings, you know, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know. But 80 years later, the people are still feeling the effects of it, man. You know, you still have individuals over there that, you know, have radiation poisoning, or, you know, they're disfigured. You know, their bodies are still messed up from the radiation, you know, years later, man. You know, so again, they have not forgotten, man. The world hasn't forgotten what you have done, you know. When I say you, I'm talking about America, man. The United States Army in particular, man. You know, and then the president during that time, Harry Truman, you know, no one has forgotten, you know, which I'm going to feature a clip at the end, you know, showing you, you know, Truman talk about it, you know. But again, man, 80 years later, you know, people haven't forgotten what you've done, Esau, you know. They have not forgotten. So I don't want to make this too long, but again, just to, you know, hit some main points of pretty much, you know, what Esau has done, right? So I'm going to start with the book of Isaiah, chapter 54 and verse 16, because it mentioned the Manhattan Project, you know, in this article, right? So this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 54 and verse 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals and the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy." And right, you know, what does the smith do? You know, a blacksmith in particular, you know, they create, you know, weapons, you know, weapons of war, you know, and these scientists and physicists, you know, are, you know, the modern day smiths, because they are behind creating and developing these nuclear weapons that are on the earth today, you know, that are on the earth today, you know. And then, you know, one of the most notable individuals behind these, you know, nukes being created is, you know, Julius Robert Oppenheimer, you know, which he has a movie about him, you know, and how he was deemed the father of the atomic bomb, you know, because this was his creation, man, you know. He helped develop these weapons. He was behind, you know, or one of the individuals that was behind, you know, those nukes being created and dropped on Japan, you know. So he's the modern day, well, he's, you know, he's dead now, but, you know, he would be a modern day Smith, man, you know, because he helped develop that weapon, you know, and the ways to destroy being the weapons themselves, man, because again, they cause a lot of damage, you know. They cause a lot of damage because that day, August 9th, 1945, you know, Esau Edom made history because, again, he had done something that the world had never seen before, you know, which was to literally drop a bomb on 2 Japanese cities. You know, he caused fire to come down from heaven, which I'm going to grab right here in the book of Revelation chapter 13 and verse 13. And it says, "And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire to come down from heaven on the earth and the sight of men." And that's exactly what he did 80 years ago, man. He caused fire to come down from heaven, meaning he dropped those bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, man. He literally nuked both of those cities, you know, with, both of those numbers combined, literally, over 200,000 people were killed. Said about 70,000, in Nagasaki, and about 140,000, in Hiroshima, Fat Man, Little Boy, the name of the bombs that were dropped on both of those cities, and the guys that dropped them, the Enola Gay, literally, Edomites in short shorts, and I'm not making this up, man, Edomites with short shorts dropped, those bombs, on those cities. And I couldn't find the clip of one of the pilots, that was, flying one of those planes, say he would do it again, if he had to. He would do it again. So again, man, Esau, this is how you know that you are the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. This is talking about you. You literally, you caused fire to come down from heaven, man. During that particular time, you had the earth in fear, because the earth had never seen anything like it, man. Right? So real quick. I may have been going to the right chapter, but I just want to make sure. So it's like you. Yep. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, and verse 16. The point is in the verse. Isaiah 14:16 says, "They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?" And again, man, once Esau goes down, because again, you are going to go down, America is going to be destroyed. So the very same thing you did unto Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and even, these different Arab countries, bombing them to hell and back, that same judgment is coming back to you. Make no mistake. But again, once Esau goes down, the other nations are going to look, at him like, this was the man, they had the whole earth in fear, because again, you did make the earth tremble on that day or on those 2 days, man. Bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you had the earth in fear. No one wanted to come up against America because no one wanted, to face that same, no one wanted that outcome, because they clearly seen the damage that it had done. The world had never seen anything, of the like, during that particular time. Now, in 2025, it's common. Every nation now has nukes. I'm not going to say every nation, but, these primary nations, because you have 9 nuclear armed nations, in the world today. The primary 2 being Russia and America, again, because these 2 countries have been in an arms race since that time, man, since those bombs were dropped. That's why Russia and America were, scrambling to get all of those different German scientists to come and help them, and we clearly see, what it led up to. These nuclear weapons that don't have to be flown, over a particular area. All they have to do is just push a button, and missiles are going to fly from one end of the earth and land on the other, Excuse me, Slakia. And just know the Japanese have not forgotten about it, man. Just know it's coming back on you, Esau. So real quick, I'm going to get the book of Zechariah, chapter 14 and verse 12. And even though this is talking about, the coming judgment to America, which you Americans are going to face, this is what those Japanese, had to deal with during those particular days, right? So this is Zechariah 14 and 12. "And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that hath fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth." And right, man, those people during that day, just going about their day to day, doing what they were doing, just out of nowhere, just, get vaporized, man. Their flesh, literally being consumed away, meaning they're being melted, man. They're being melted as they stand upon their feet, their skin burning off of them, their eyes burning inside their heads, man, their tongue consuming away. That's a real thing, man. A very vivid illustration of that would be, the scene from Terminator 2, Sarah Connor, when she had that dream that she was killed by, a nuclear blast. And that's what the Japanese faced that day, or on those days, being vaporized, being destroyed by that nuclear fire, But that same thing is going to come to you Americans out there, man. If you still think America is a great country, think again. Now, obviously, America is still, that primary country that's in power right now, but it's going to be destroyed, man. It's going to be destroyed, and that's going to be the case for you people. You're going to be melted. The Lord is going to melt you with his weapons, because these are the weapons of the Lord's indignation, right? So I'm going to come back to Isaiah in chapter 13, and just straight to the point, verse 5. It says, they come from a far country, from the one Slakia. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. And right, man, as we know, or should know by now, Esau's blessing was the sword, pursuing to Genesis 27 and 40. The Lord blessed him with that, technology, and not just his technology, all of his weaponry, but his primary weapon being these nukes that are on the earth today, because they're Esau's, weapons, but they're really the Lord's weapons, man, the weapons of his righteous anger, because again, he's going to take Esau out the same way he came into power, and that's going to be by violence, That's how Esau is going to be taken out. So just remember, man, the world has not forgotten what you have done. That very same thing is going to come back on you, man. So I'm going to get the book of Malachi, chapter 4 and verse 1. And it says, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that I shall leave them neither root nor branch. And right, man, that's what's coming to America, man. The day that shall burn as oven, World War III, i.e. the day of the Lord, man, because that's what's coming to this place, man. Total destruction, because America is well overdue for judgment, because of all of the atrocities that is done, to these different nations, and primarily to the children of Israel, man. So-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. He's done us the worst, but he has also oppressed these other nations as well, by doing these various things. And that incident that ended World War II, was one of those things, man. People haven't forgotten about it. People are still angry about it, but just know your judgment is coming, Esau, and there's nothing you can do to escape it. So I'm going to end it with this. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 14. And it says, the second war is past, and behold, the third war cometh quickly. So right, World War II ended, 80 years ago, So now that third war, meaning the Third World War, is coming quickly, man. Because I'm just, just going to paraphrase it, but, pursuant to Revelation chapter 9 and verse 15, there's a particular, hour, day, month, and year when this war is going to take place, man. There's a set time when this war, when this destruction is going to take place here in America, and that destruction is primarily going to be for the nation of Edom, you so-called white people, is for you. That's who this destruction is for the wickedness that you have done in this earth. And again, primarily to the nation of Israel, man. The Lord is going to get you back. So again, man, the Japanese haven't forgotten what you have done. Neither will we forget what you have done to us. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I'm going to give all our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the artists of the great millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say.
This is just in, ladies and gentlemen. President Truman just announced the first ever use of a new secret weapon, an atomic bomb of unparalleled strength. The bomb was deployed 16 hours ago and engulfed Hiroshima in a mushroom of fire. Japanese officials have confirmed the immediate loss of over 78,000 lives following the blast, with the total number of casualties now exceeding 130,000. President Truman has called for Japan to surrender or expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth.
Sir, at the time that you first found out about the atomic bomb, did you regard it as a curse or a blessing to mankind?
Well, I thought it was a blessing. I thought it could be used and made a blessing. I never worried about it being a curse. I wanted a weapon that would win the war, and it did. That's what I was interested in.